Neeraj, thank you for having me. And I think it's a great pleasure to come and talk in this summit. And maybe if you don't mind, Deepak, you can also come along and then help me shape up this presentation. That would be really great. I am not from the agri-tech domain or anything of that sort, and I don't claim to be that. But I will kind of have some thoughts which maybe you can pitch in based on your wealth of experience that you have in this domain. But the way I see from a retailer's perspective, I'll put in some of the thoughts which are out there as to how the agri-tech industry as such should evolve. We are living in a digital era, and hence digital has to touch each and every part of our life. And agri-tech is one of the areas where we are seeing tremendous potential and interest as well. But if things not done well, I think can lead to a lot of bubble and froth without too much of impact having really translated into feeding the billions of people that we have, which still struggle for food. Yeah. So I think the mission of the entire AgTech space, as they call it, should be to make sure that we are able to alleviate people from hunger. We are able to bring food, nutritious food, in a very sustainable way to each and every individual in this world. And I think that would be the whole theme that I'll kind of talk about. And if
Sure,
I
Piyush, just let me add one small thing, right? If I've seen somebody who is having crystal ball of what's going to happen in future, right? You are that person, right? So I've been following, like, how you have been forecasting about how the retail is going to work, and I've seen that thing coming through for close to half a decade now. So, like, I would also like you, as we are talking about tech, that guys, please listen very carefully, because this guy definitely is having a crystal ball with him. Carry on, Piyush.
Thank you. And so the theme is predominantly how to move so-called agriculture into agri-tech. Yeah, and that to me is a big transition. Like retail is transitioning from being a product-centric organization. Agri-tech also has to move away from growing crops. Yeah, agriculture was known for growing crops, whereas the objective should be to feed people. Yeah, I think if we just move that use with the use of technology, I think a whole new perspective will be brought in. And what I will do is I'll kind of walk you through some of the challenges that I see from a retailer perspective. So obviously there are seven things, because people remember seven very easily. Anything beyond seven things people tend to forget, and hence these are the seven problems that you see in an agricultural supply chain. There's a huge disconnect between supplier and the retailer. I come from a retailer community. Just so that everyone is aware, I predominantly am the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Lulu Group. We have sourcing offices in about 22 countries worldwide, and we must be serving close to about 1 million customers every week. And 70 to 80% of our business is around grocery and related segment, which means that we get in the entire sourcing supply chain, the storing supply chain, as well as the front end last mile supply chain. So all is something that we own quite a lot. We have kind of people who source stuff from 22 places, all the continents. So you name it, we have offices in Australia, right from Australia to Latin America to Europe, US, Africa, and obviously the Asian region. And so I've kind of listed down seven things that, if kind of eliminated from a fiction perspective, we would see a very, very different supply chain, and the way we kind of see things in the future. A disconnect between supplier and a retailer. And so obviously there are multiple angles to it. What the retailers need is what their customers want, and that information of what are the tastes of the consumer, what are the tastes, how are the taste changing of the consumer. I think that information flowing back to the supplier is there, but I think it is very fragmented, and hence there is a disconnect between what the supplier and retailer is, and hence there are supply mismatch which happens, and there are price mismatch which happen as a result of that. And so there is a very good opportunity for integrating this information flow with whatever, there are multiple ways and technologies that you look at. So how can you bring or bridge that disconnect? Penetration of digital, obviously, although there has been a lot of investment and startup ecosystem that is coming up in the agri-tech, but still I would say that is the last segment that we are seeing from a adoption of digital perspective. Transparency of product origin. Now, this is very important, and I think to me, today the customer is actually demanding this. Customer would want to know if you're saying that this is an apple which is grown in a farm in Italy, or it has grown in a farm in France or in the UK. You need to let me know where it is coming from exactly, and with a high level of trust. Yeah, and that is one of the inputs that we are seeing that the customers are looking for. Obviously, financing is a big angle and a kind of a factor which will weigh in a lot of this. Since there are less financing options, the entire industry as such is fragmented. There are not enough buying power worldwide for the supply chain to be so kind of front heavy, I would say, because the max amount of profit is in the front end part of the supply chain, and because of the costly middleman. The costly middleman and the front end are actually the ones who are kind of eating away most of the profits, which is then leading to it reaching to the wealthy part of the world, and hence leading to scarcity in the remotest part of the world. And if you see from a food security perspective, even though, let's say, GCC region, GCC region is would be producing very little of their consuming needs, but still there is sufficient food availability in these regions, whereas, let's say, Africa or other parts of Asia, which are demographically much lower, we will not see that amount of food scarcity, and hence there has to be some amount of parity that we need to see. And the last is something which is a COVID impact. There is a huge push towards local sourcing, near source sourcing, and stuff like that, and hence this long tail supply chain which were built over the last few decades are being dismantled. And hence what is happening is people are wanting to go back to local farms, people are wanting to go back to the local produce, then the next door farmers and stuff like that, and there's a big boom which is happening in this. And so these are 7 I would say problems and challenges that we would surely want to overcome. And for anybody who is trying to solve this, although this may sound very generic in nature, but if they are broken down into multiple smaller chunks, I think if everything put together, that can create a large ecosystem which will then help solve some of the bigger problems that we are seeing. So Deepak, just wanted to bring you in. Is this resonating with what you are seeing on the ground, and when you speak to so many people out there, what are your thoughts?
100% Piyush, this is exactly, I'll say that I was right when I said, your crystal gazing is perfect. you have identified the pretty majority of the pain points, and most important of them, especially when we talk about disconnects. That's pretty true, because we have seen that the disconnect is just not between the supplier and retailer, but across the value chain, right? The aggregator doesn't know what farmer when he'll be actually supplying, right? And the aggregator doesn't know actually the demand part of it. Even the big companies, which are typically e-commerce companies, they are having pretty say that robust demand generation tools. Still, I've seen some of the largest company incurring losses as big as 30% of their net worth in a day. So there is definitely those disconnect there. Low penetration of digital, definitely when we talk about Asia and Africa where we work, we have seen the smartphone doesn't mean that actually a guy is connected digitally. So there are both challenges of definitely digital infrastructure, and also challenges about know-how and understanding. And some of the time, few years back, we just went on so that drive to create more and more applications, right? And with the flooding of application, like, farmer is far more confused today than he was previously. So that we can see, and that's why the adoption of tools like WhatsApp and, like, bots around WhatsApp is a dominant feature going forward. A lack of transparency, also that less you talk about it, better it is, right? Because nobody wants transparency, especially those people who are cornering the maximum profitability across the value chain. Financing is a challenge because there is no data, right? When farmer transact, right, a lot of it is unorganized, and majority of the algorithms which are currently working on microcredit or, like, even structural financing through banks, they are very much based on the transaction history, and farmer, or, like, the value chain of agriculture doesn't have much of it. Costly middlemen, I'll say that there are too many of them. So that's why that makes them very costly. And then food scarcity is already there, right? We are talking about pre-COVID 812 million people food insecure, and post-COVID different estimates tell you different story. But like, it varies from 1.3 billion going all the way to 2.2 billion, right? So yeah, we are already seeing 20-25% of, if you go to the extreme, like, world being food insecure. And the sourcing strategy definitely post COVID will change. And I don't have too much expertise on that, but I understand, like, coming from you, it's pretty robust. So very well articulated. Like, I would love to use your slides going forward. Give me copyright of this as well.
Absolutely. And so they're not going to paint a glooms and doomsday story. Yeah. So the bright side is this. Yeah. And to cheer everyone up. And so this is latest data. Freebie Insights, a very reliable source. And so if you see in the 5 years, we have seen the deals which are coming in this space going by almost from 122 to almost 2000 deals. Yeah. And that is the power of this industry. Unfortunately, I think everybody, as Deepak was mentioning, it is happening at the front end. And I will give you a very simple example, right? People are talking about AI, IoT, and stuff like that. But until unless you solve the data problem, which I think my earlier speaker was very rightly talking about, until unless we solve the data problem, and which is a very difficult problem, it's not an easy problem. And I work for a large retail enterprise, and for us as a large retail enterprise where we interact with million customers every week, we must be doing multiple kind of thousand of touch points which are supplier on a daily basis, and to collect all that interaction data at least at an enterprise level is so humongous. And you have to just imagine when you have to go back to your agri community, and where the industry, where the whole ecosystem is so fragmented, people are so much of segregated in terms of views, options and opportunities, and just giving a app on their smartphone is not going to solve the problem. Yeah? And hence there has to be a very, very concentrated initiative in terms of bringing agri data all put together. And this cannot be done by individuals, and this cannot be done by a few corporate houses. This has to be a global initiative. Yeah, this has to be obviously driven. The governments across the world need to play a very, very big role. But until unless we do that, some of these agri-tech companies will not be able to see the light of the day. And to me, I think a bigger focus should be towards building that digital infrastructure, which then can be provided to some of these and a lot of these agri-tech companies, which can then, because I was speaking to somebody, and they were kind of saying that, okay, we have a fantastic analytics platform in which if you provide us the soil data on a real-time basis, we can do the analysis. And I said, who will provide that soil data? He said, there are multiple vendors who do that. And that is where the fragmented journey comes in. Yeah. And that to me is a bigger problem. Create a digital data infrastructure in this space. It is humongous task, but until unless there is a concentrated effort towards that, a lot of money which is flowing into some of these deals will not see the light of the day. There are a lot of companies who are trying to build data infrastructure, which I think I will talk about one of them subsequently. But that is a big space. This is a space which is going to boom. And if you were to basically look at it, there are three large and broad segments where the money is flowing into. One obviously is the farm management side of it, which I think there is a lot of robotics, drones, a lot of automation which is out there. Then the so-called input management, or the adaptive farming side of it, in which there is a there are talks about how to manage soil, how to manage water, how to manage the inputs, and do that. And then there is the supply chain management, wherein you talk about, let's say, blockchain as a technology. Yeah. On the other side, on the input side, you need to focus on IoT as a kind of industry vertical. So farm management, IoT enabled input management, and blockchain enabled supply chain management. These are broadly the three broad areas where there is a lot of traction. And to me, I think farm management is relatively independent in nature, but the other two, the IoT and the blockchain as such, are kind of related. And until unless there are large players who come in and try to enable that ecosystem, I think we will not be able to see a lot of these investments that we are talking about through agri-tech converting and actually benefiting the consumer as such. So as I kind of talked about the three broad things, blockchain is one of them. What are the use cases of blockchain? And if you see, blockchain is nothing but, obviously no need to talk about, everyone knows about the so-called cryptocurrency, which is quite hot. But the underlying technology is about bringing in a distributed ledger framework and trying to bring everyone on the same page using a technology which cannot be tampered. Yeah, that's to me a very, very kind of a common man's language about blockchain. Set of software systems which bring in different parties, which kind of establish them to transact with bringing in enough transparency, whereas secure as well as open and a reliable system which can help do that. And obviously people would have heard about IBM Food Trust, one of the largest food blockchain implementation which is out there. There are others who are, Nestle is building one of their own. And so there are multiple of these players which are building in so-called as private and public blockchain networks. We are also exploring, as Lulu, we are exploring and seeing how these things will evolve. But how does the blockchain in agriculture solve? Yeah, it predominantly can be used for bringing transparency. That is the most fundamental thing about blockchain. It will kind of eliminate a lot of unnecessary and costly middlemen that we talked about. Yeah, it will bring in the so-called financing options very easy, because when you're connected on a distributed ledger fabric which is out there, your pricing will be much fairer, because you will exactly be able to see who is the party which is adding the maximum, and hence the maximum profit should ideally be transferred to that. And that is where the whole adoption thing will kind of come in. And obviously when you try to do it in a private blockchain consortium, you will have kind of much better understanding of what is the ecosystem, and then you can keep on adding towards it. Public ecosystems still evolving. We don't know what shape and direction. We are watching this space. There is a big focus towards private consortiums as of now, because this is a costly technology. It is not cheap, and the usage of it is also limited, which means that bringing the entire kind of a backward supply chain onto a blockchain network is not easy. We have experimented it. For example, we have a lot of farms in India. We have a lot of slaughterhouses in India, and how do we use this to bring into a blockchain? It's not that easy. And so want to leave this 10 possible use cases in terms of bringing in better pricing, bringing in provenance and transparency, bringing in food traceability, trying to enhance. You can bring in the input providers onto the blockchain network, so they also can participate in it and reap the benefits out of it. So I think this space will evolve over the next few years, and we'll see huge opportunities is coming along. What are the IoT use cases? Obviously can be divided into 4 different areas. One is obviously water management. I think while we are talking about food scarcity, my honest view would be that we'll see water scarcity first before food scarcity really becomes a big issue, and we are already seeing it. And hence there is a huge opportunity for startups to work in this domain. There are a lot of companies who are working already in this, but this has to be now democratized, and everybody needs to start using it. Soil monitoring sensors. Now this is what a mobile phone of agriculture is. Yeah. What you have as a mobile phone in everybody's hand today, Google uses that data, or Android uses that data to basically understand what each and every individual is doing. And hence the soil monitoring sensor is nothing but the mobile of the agriculture unit. Yeah. And hence, until unless we are able to give this mobile phone of a soil monitoring as a soil monitoring sensor in each and every farm around the world, we'll not be able to see a lot of benefit which is coming out from that. And obviously on the other side, there needs to be automation, particularly in the West, where labor scarcity is coming. And believe me, even in developing countries in Asia and Africa, we are seeing scarcity of labor in most of the agricultural farms. So there needs to be a lot more automation which is out there. And obviously you need to see for future technologies using drone and stuff like that. So these are predominantly the kind of use cases. And I just want to show a simple video of a company which is, I hope, are you able to see the video?
No, Piyush, not so far.
Is it
now we can see the YouTube one. Yeah, so perfect.
There is a vast amount of untapped data below the surface of every farm. Data that has the potential to change how we grow our crops, and in turn, how we conserve our resources and feed our growing global population. Introducing CropX, a platform that delivers the soil intelligence today's farmers need to reduce inputs, improve yields, and meet tomorrow's global food demands. The unique patented spiral design of the do-it-yourself CropX sensor make it easy to self-install in just minutes without disturbing the soil, thus significantly increasing accuracy beyond any other sensing technology. Combining soil moisture, temperature, and EC readings with a comprehensive big data analytics platform and advanced cloud technology, CropX delivers the most reliable soil monitoring system on the market. We help farmers cut costs, prevent runoff, and optimize crop yield. Farmers can create their profile, load their sensor data, map fields and zones, and take action in just a few clicks. Actionable insight helps farmers get more from their soil. Every crop, every field, no matter where they are. CropX, the Internet of Soil.
So I didn't want to do any marketing as such, but just from a thought process perspective, if these technology is provided as free and implanted into each and every farm across the world, just imagine how much of saving that we will see. Yeah, and that is the kind of revolution that we need. We've seen a lot of revolutions, green revolutions and stuff like that, which have happened in the past. But this is the revolution which is needed, in which everybody should be working towards creating a data infrastructure for the agriculture domain. And until unless we do that, the rest of the supply chain of agriculture, I think, is relatively easy to solve. But this is the most difficult part. And this to me is a change in the way we do agriculture, in the way we do a lot of things. And then you tie this entire information into a blockchain network and bring it to the front end. I think we'll see a very, very different days. And I think everybody knows about Pinduoduo enterprise, a startup in China, which is changing the world out there, at least in terms of the agriculture ecosystem which is out there. If somebody has not seen it, I would be surprised. But if not, then you please go and look at the work that they're doing. They're trying to kill the middleman. Yeah. And they're trying to bring in a lot of value add in terms of analytics, precision farming, logistics, packaging, and food safety, all of them put together. So as Uber revolutionized the world by not owning any cars, this startup is kind of revolutionizing the agriculture without owning any farms, as such. And to me, these are the kind of models that we need to look at, so that we transform and bring in digital to the core of each and everything that we do, and kind of make a better and a sustainable planet going forward. And so that is it from my end, Deepak.
Yeah, so
anything?
Yeah, sure. We are not going to let you go so early, right? So again, very pointed, straightforward. Would it be possible for you to stop sharing so that we can see each other, like,
Sure.
right? And people can also see, right?
Yes.
So Piyush, very well articulated. What I love the most about what you talked about is that you brought in two companies from two countries, and believe me, these two countries are actually defining how the agriculture would be for in future. Cropex, I'll say that extraordinary technology capabilities, right? Predominantly focus more on the large size farms, right? Because of the cost. Maybe once the cost is low, then you'll find it like, it is as good for a acre plot also. Pinduoduo, actually, like, I've been following them since my first visit to China. That was, I think, 2017, right? Chinese companies, from biotech part to precision farming part to satellite imagery part and to, like, innovation in the, like, typically supply chain, they are hitting all the boxes in a very aggressive and in a very high volume manner. You have startups, right? In when we talk about other part of the world, we talk about numbers like, 5 startups doing this. There is huge number. Unfortunately, because, like, they are not very upfront with sharing the data of the things they are doing, they are never numbered as top second or third or fifth startup ecosystem in the world. But believe me, like anybody who's in agriculture, they need to see China very closely. For a very simple reason is that they're having land, which unfortunately Netherlands and Israel, which are technically superior, right, are not having. But China, definitely they have land, they have capabilities, and they are having that intent. I met a very senior guy who was, like, in one of the starting, I'll say that visionary in e-commerce from China. We all know, I do not name it, but we all know who we are talking about. I had one-to-one meeting with him, and he has just retired from typically the board of that his company is founded. And I said that congratulations for the retirement. And he said, Deepak, I have retired from this company. My focus is agriculture. 2050, we want 70% of the world eating from us. That's the vision of China. So guys, be careful about that. So now coming to the question, this was like, initial building up. Piyush, as a company, as an organization, right, who has been front-ending of selling whatever farmers are producing with your customers, right? How do you see, like, you or your company looking forward of getting direct engagement at the grassroots level with the farmers, right? Do you see that as a feasibility, or maybe, like, I'm saying that a view of a company like yours, right, who's very strong in the retail part of it, right, getting access directly to the farmer, or do you think it is too complex for a company like yours to get into that?
No, obviously we are doing that. For a large unit where everything, for example, our 95 or most of our turnover comes from GC, where we grow very hardly anything. We have to go back to our sourcing locations, and where we are in touch with the farmers themselves. We have Fair Exports is a sister concern based in India and has offices worldwide. So there is a Fair Exports Philippines, there is a Fair Exports Italy, and so on and so forth. So we have exporting units from Latin America, where we go and reach out to farmers. We work with the farmers. So for example, we in the entire GCC region, we may be catering to almost a very large portion of mango supplies from India. Yeah, and that would only be possible because we are running a Mango Mania Fest as of now, wherein mangoes from about 25 countries all over the world are being sourced and sold as we speak. Yeah, so these kind of backward integration and supply chain are needed, but again, that is from a okay, you, how much can you supply? I can supply this much. I have a contract, and that's it, right? To me, I think the integration is not only transaction. There has to be more than that. In which, how can we be part of the ecosystem? Yeah, how can we help you grow better? How can you help us source and supply better? So I think there needs to be talk and discussion beyond the so-called transaction mode which is out there. And once we do that, that is where I think the game-changing effort will happen. And to me, when people are brought onto a, let's say, private blockchain network, that is when those conversations of trust will come in. Till the time they are all separated as separate entities, it is a you as a seller and me as a buyer, right? So our job is to just say that, okay, how much, what is the best price that you can offer, and I will say how much of price that I would want to buy for. And that is where the transaction is, the negotiations are on a transaction. Beyond that, I think there is an ecosystem play which is out there, which I think to me is the way forward, in which you are able to try and work. That would be the best way going forward.
No, I definitely look forward of having our farmers I work with, their beautiful turmeric, ginger, and garlic on your shopfront with complete QR code, which will tell how much water is being used in growing that ginger. I look forward to that day, and I'm saying that inshallah it is going to happen pretty soon. Right. Thanks a lot, Piyush. Like, it's always pleasure of interacting with you, and like, it was a huge value.